Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everyone. Welcome to the Game Week 11 pod of the FPL Wire. 6 game weeks to the World Cup. I'm your host, Zoph. My co-host, Lateriser, and I are joined by our friend, Big Man Bakar. How are you doing, buddy?
Thanks for having me, Zoph. Yeah, decent week. After the shenanigans of Game Week 9, recovered some respectability to the rank. Decent week for me. Assumed the same for Lateriser as well. He brought in Martial this week, slightly unlucky there.
Decent week. How many points did you get, Bakar?
Oh, I see you've done your homework. Very sharp. 69. Interesting.
It's all good.
I was hoping I'd get away with it. I deliberately did not mention the score.
Is it the first time on the pod? Who do you think we are?
I love how you've done your homework. You don't let me get away with anything. I like the way you're keeping an eye on me.
Have to learn from all the people in your DMs.
Cool.
Okay.
Let's just jump straight in, guys, since we have a very short turnaround, no time for real small talk today. We'll do a sponsor plug and start with our Liverpool discussion. All data you see on the FPL Wire is taken from the Fantasy Football Scout members area. The new improved members area is now up and running, and the new comparison tool lets you compare key stats for up to 3 players. Player projections are also live, and as always, you can access the custom stats table we create or make one for yourself. Sign up for membership today using our affiliate link in the description below. Right. So we were debating whether to do this pod on Tuesday or wait till Thursday, and it turns out that waiting has been a great decision. There's a lot to unpack from the midweek games. We have a potential Reece James injury. We have to discuss Liverpool's performance against Rangers. But before we get into that, as you guys all know, that the next game week 12 is a midweek game week. So we wanted to discuss the schedule for different teams. Lego Manis put out an excellent ticker to that effect. You can check out on his Twitter account. But let's look at teams that we have a specific FPL interest in, namely Liverpool. Now, what's interesting here about Liverpool is they have the shortest turnaround of teams between game week 11 to 12 and game week 12 to 13. So they've been absolutely shafted by the recovery schedule out of any team. So we are going to see some rotation. Liverpool effectively plays Sunday, Wednesday, and Saturday, having just played in the Champions League yesterday on Wednesday. But the City game is a Sunday, so that's a 4-day turnaround. And the reason I wanted to mention this is Klopp is very big on sports science. There's a school of thought that says that a player has a significant risk of injury if the recovery time is less than 72 hours. After 96 hours, they're really only marginal gains. So anytime we're looking at recovery of that time, it is likely that there is going to be rest and rotation. So this is something to keep in mind for Liverpool. As us look at Chelsea. Chelsea is not much better as well. It's just a couple of other hours either way. So even if James is fit, will he play both games? Will he be kept fresh for Manchester United? Something to watch out for there. Any comments on the schedule, guys?
I mean, looking at those numbers, I think a lot of the players who play the Man City game will probably be a high percentage of that might be rested for the West Ham game or the Forest game after that. So it's something you keep in mind. I think very, very few players are going to play and start all three games, except for maybe the CBs. I can't confidently point out anybody who might be playing all the games. So that's where I am.
Bakar?
I think what's of interest to FPL managers here is basically what's going to happen with Salah. And as someone who owns him, I was obviously questioning whether or not to keep him, because in this new formation, he doesn't. Before yesterday, he wasn't really looking threatening at all. He was playing very wide. Yesterday, he was playing more centrally. Um, I'm glad he's had his rest now, and I don't think I have any problems keeping him in my squad because usually Klopp tends to play Salah thrice a week without any hesitation in general. I mean, had he played yesterday, I would have been more concerned, and I would have thought that he'd probably miss one of the Forest or West Ham game, which wouldn't have been ideal, and which would have obviously put some question marks on whether or not to keep him. But now I do think I'm very confident that he is going to start the next three now that he's had his rest.
Let's talk about the Rangers game yesterday, Pranay. I want your perspective as an owner. And do keep in mind that we are obviously leading to the fact that it's Rangers. We understand that it's not very difficult opposition. But that being said, I don't think the Forest defense is necessarily better than the Rangers defense in that sense. So there is certain things we can learn from it. So what did you take from it?
I think there are a couple of factors that are at play here, and I think we need to take stack off when we're talking about positions in Liverpool. And the main thing is the fact that Harvey Elliott and Carvalho were the two players who were playing the wing role. And I think that's quite important. And what used to happen earlier is when Klopp used to play the 4-3-3, and it used to be with Trent as wing back. Trent was somebody who made inside runs. He was playing in the half spaces. And that led to, because Harvey Elliott wasn't holding the width, that led to Mo Salah holding the width. Now, after that, they progressed to the 4-2-2-2 formation as well. In that formation, so far until yesterday, we also saw that Mo Salah wasn't coming inside too much. He did it only in the first half against Brighton. Again, when more strikers came, he was pushed out wide. Obviously, it's playing on Klopp's mind that my best player and my best goal scorer is best utilized when he's closer to goal. So I'm just hoping the odds of him playing more central in the next 3-4 games are slightly higher. We don't know for sure. He could still be shafted to the right wing, but I think the chances of him being closer to goal, especially with somebody like a Gomez, who's much more natural at holding the width. He's got that cross from deep. I expect him to play a more generic wing back role rather than playing like Trent, where he's coming in the half spaces like a midfielder. So these things adding up, I reckon that he could play right wing, he could play inside forward, but the chances of him being closer to goal are higher, which makes the chances of him being a better FPL asset more likely. That's just where I am. So I was very much debating on Sunday whether I should hold Salah or am I sort of snooking myself into a position of holding him with these fixtures coming ahead. But I'm just much more comfortable holding him today than I was on Sunday.
Bakar? I think, Bakar, do you have, I think,
Yeah, same here. I mean,
go ahead, Bakar. I think still with
am
us?
I audible?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was saying that I completely agree with Pranil. I mean, I was questioning whether to sort of move him on for Son this week. But I mean, to be very honest, I think a lot of managers are in a similar position where they have bigger fish to fry. And with his fixtures and now that he's had his rest, I just don't think I want to get rid of him.
Captain for game week 12?
We'll go through captaincy in game week 11 first, but he's an option in my mind. He's definitely an option in my mind, captain. I'm worried about this turnaround time, but yeah, obviously he's in my short list of captaincy in gaming.
Right. I'm going to talk about him now from the perspective of a non-owner, right? So let's say now I'm somebody who owns De Bruyne, and earlier in this week I was potentially thinking of moving further away from Salah. I'm now moving possibly to a premium forward, maybe a Kane or a Nunes. But now having seen what I saw yesterday, there were very positive signs. Now I look at Salah; he's a champion, right? And champions respond. Now there are two ways it could have gone. Now after being substituted, in what was probably his lowest moment, I would think, in a Liverpool shirt so far. There are two ways he could have responded to that. He could have sulked, but he responded to the other end of the spectrum. He's come on and he's shown. Like, the wounded animal thing like we saw with Son, that's very much there. So I think even if he's going to be playing on the right wing, I think there is a sense of like renewed confidence, renewed vigor. And these are all very positive indicators in general. So what I'm thinking now is I'll probably give it game week 11, see how things go. I'll probably hold on to De Bruyne for then and leave myself the option open for game week 12 rather than commit, because as good as Nunes is, I'm a little bit worried about rotation for Nunes in the next 3 games, because Klopp mentioned while subbing him on that Nunes had not played much, so suddenly he cannot play a lot of games close together. So I am quite positive about Salah featuring a centre forward in one of these games. And you see the comments by Robertson after, feed Salah, he would score. There's a whole, saw Van Dijk going over to Salah at the end of the game. There's a general, and this is all X vibes. More than anything, right? There's no like something to back it up. This is just vibes.
It's the thing we spoke about in the morning on the Discord, Zoph, where you said that Salah is that person for you, where even if he shows a little bit of his ankle, you're going to fall for it.
I don't need no legs or cleavage, just a little bit of ankle and I'm all over that shit. That's it.
Exactly. And I think it's an interesting conversation to have, because I think you and I are different. I think the position that you would be not owning Salah, if I was in your position, I think we would have digressed in terms of the direction we would have taken, because I would have been much more comfortable. I would do the same thing, wait till 11, see what happens. But if Salah doesn't show enough leg, I would have been comfortable spreading the funds and making my bet outside of Mo Salah, punting on the likes of Darwin and Jota, and spreading the cash around. But like we're saying, I think the case for him becomes better. Somebody who's already owning him, hold him, and somebody who doesn't own him, watch and see what happens in Game Week 11. I think that's basically the conclusion.
Yeah, because even if you own Kane, you obviously keep Kane for the Everton game, but Salah's only a hit away. In Game Week 12, if you take a hit for a captain, that's no big deal at all.
Yeah.
I don't see that
Exactly,
as a
and I
problem.
do think that the Game Week 12 captaincy shout is going to be a very, very tricky one, because there aren't any obvious options available. Salah is the one you want to go for at home to West Ham, especially now that you know that he's going to start. There's a very high possibility of that. Other than that, there's like Trossard at home to Forest, but would you really want to go there? Would you feel confident going there?
Not
Yes.
I mean,
not me.
yes, Brighton have been good, but
I have big team bias.
it is risky. I mean,
I have big team bias.
because you have to sort of back the pedigree as well. Yeah, exactly. Same here. So you'd rather back someone like a Salah, right? Even if you have to take a hit for it.
Definitely. And look at West Ham's recovery period also. West Ham, keep in mind, they're playing Anderlecht today. Although that game is at home, they're going to play Southampton on Sunday, which is not going to be an easy game just because of the energy that Southampton usually expend. It's like Leeds. You have to spend a lot of energy just playing there. And then you have the Wednesday. So it's only, again, 75 hours, about the same turnaround times for both teams. So it's not like West Ham are going to be turning up there like fully rested in top condition as well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's that much of a factor anyway, because see, the Mo Salah that you're dealing with today isn't 100% plus effective ownership Mo Salah. He isn't going to hurt you as much as he used to be able to hurt you back in the day. It's much more opportunistic as a point of view, but West Ham are no mugs. They know how to sit deep and defend. So I don't think it's a standout fixture. I don't think, if the Game Week 12 game was NFO or Leeds United, yes, I'd be with you guys. I don't think West Ham is that good a fixture, and I I mean, Maddison is playing Leeds United, and Brighton are playing Forest. I think they're decent enough options. So I don't think it's that big a factor because I think West Ham is a decent team. That's all.
Zaha is playing Wolves also, but then another conversation to have is if not West Ham, see the fixtures after, then you have Forest, Leeds, Spurs, and Southampton. There are goals there. No matter if Liverpool concede 3 or 4, you look at their numbers, even for shots in the box, despite missing a game, they're still there in second or third. So they will score goals. I can't see them not scoring, let's say, in the next what?
And the thing that's
Go ahead, Bakar.
exactly. And Zoph, the thing that's changed now is the fact that Diaz isn't around. I mean, there would have been an argument to have sort of spread the cash and to have gone with Diaz because if you're not captaining Salah, then you can sort of afford to go with Diaz and hope that he gets the points and sort of covers Salah. Let me put it that way. But now, with the fact that he's injured, I think that's good for Salah in isolation as well because he's a ball hogger, and I do think that his absence will help Salah. And not just that. Now, when you look at their options, there's Jota, Firmino, Nunes. I mean, it's not really obvious as to who will play every game. They aren't like fully nailed players for 90 minutes. So if you want someone from the Liverpool attack, it has to be Salah, right? So that option of Diaz sort of been not available also helps his case.
I'm not too worried about Jota's expected minutes, if you ask me. I think he's as important to that Liverpool attack. And I think Darwin also will miss out one game out of the next 3.
The expected minutes are worry only for this period, and everyone was in expected minutes risk except the guys who have already been rested. And Jota wasn't a fatigue thing. There was a comment from Klopp about him carrying something in his calf, an injury.
Yeah.
So that's something to keep in mind. That puts me off Jota. Now, another argument I wanted to discuss that somebody in our Discord made was that is Salah worth the 13 million when captaincy isn't a factor? Don't you rather stack up on the 8 million mids? But the way that at least my team structure is, and I'm guessing a lot of other team is, you can easily get a Salah, replace Maddison with Foden, have like a Zaha or a Saka in that position, have your Martinelli, and I still like Andreas. People are talking about moving to a 5-man midfield, but I still like Andreas up to game week 16 for a first sub every week. There are going to be random injuries, random players missing out.
I mean, Zoph,
Trent is injured.
Point, I mean,
exactly.
This is probably out. Where are you spending the money? The money is not a criteria right now.
Exactly. Bakar, go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, you can have, you just spoke about Foden, you can have Foden with Salah, right? I mean, a lot of us have Maddison. Maddison's fixtures after like 13 aren't really ideal, so you can easily swap Maddison to Foden in 13.
Correct. The only thing you're possibly missing out is that 9 million, 11 million forward, out of which there's only Harry Kane. I still don't have that much trust in Nunes and Oba, but I do think Nunes is an option. I want to see if he goes completely ham against Man City. I might go for Nunes instead of Salah.
He's very much an option. And I think it's even okay to double up. Now, people are thinking about Liverpool not having form. They're still top 5 in the league for XG. And Brighton and Arsenal are second and third for XGC, if I remember correctly. These are the two oppositions that Liverpool have faced in the last 2 games and have scored 5 goals. So it's not like they don't have goals in that team. There are goals and there are chances and there is XG that they're generating. So I still think it's worth chasing for explosivity. I just think what's going to happen game week 13 is I think our watch list or short list of players that we're targeting is going to be very, very strong. I mean, we are going to look at least 1 or 2 Arsenal attackers. We're going to look at making sure, I think the priority is making sure you cap out on your 3 Man City. Because nobody else is scoring 4 or 5 goals a game, and they've been doing that every week, and I expect that to continue, especially because UCL is almost done for them now. You're going to target Liverpool. So out of these 3 teams, which bets are you making is something you need to prioritize, because like Zoph, you and I were talking, Foden, Saka, top of our list, which makes us think that striker spot is slightly more disposable. Where do you go? Because then we are thinking about Gabby J. Because there are too many spots in midfield, do you not go for Saka, etc.? All these things come into play. And most of these people don't cost more than 10 million. So there's enough and more money.
Correct. I think we've spoken a lot about Liverpool. Shall we move on to the Mitrovic or James discussions?
Yeah, let's do James.
Right.
Because I think that's sort of connected to this.
I mean, Trent replacements as well. I mean, it's essentially the same thing. Trent, James. So.
Yeah. Remember when
where are you guys at when it comes to James?
When Big at the Back was a thing, we had all these guys. Now they're all completely evaporated. How are you feeling about Perisic, Bakar?
I personally think it's a good thing for him that he was rested. I mean, he was kind of, I won't say rested because he's been
back
sort of
rests.
dropped now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's not what I would
No,
really
I mean, I
want.
don't think he was rested. He was dropped. Let me put it that way. He was dropped because Sessegnon's been good. But now the fact that Sessegnon has started the previous two fixtures makes me feel that Perisic will start. And I was on the fan forums. I check them very regularly, and the Spurs fans are unanimous in their opinion that Perisic and Doherty will start as the wing backs in game week 11 against Everton. So as a Perisic owner, that's good news for me. But I don't think that bodes well for him in the long run because I do expect Sessegnon to come in against Man United in game week 12. Um, yeah, I mean, if I don't think I would be buying him this week necessarily because I do think that there will always be that rotation threat that looms over him. But yes, there is upside when he plays, and I guess the same applies for Doherty as well. And I mean, Doherty is a tempting option, but again, you don't know whether it's going to play or not. I mean, last week we were sitting here and Conte discussing Conte's comments saying that he didn't want to lose because if he selected Doherty, then he sort of kindly, I mean, he sort of inferred that that's likely to happen, but it didn't. But like, so this threat will always loom over the Spurs wing backs.
Right. So that's what I was wondering. I don't really like Perisic as a replacement option. What about the Chelsea wing backs, Pranil? Does Chilwell interest you?
I think the whole conversation actually revolves around more macro in terms of if you're removing James now. First of all, should you remove Reece James or not? And I think that depends on the structure and the type of team you want. Because what's going to happen is game week 12 onwards, because of the fixtures that we cited for Liverpool, City, and Arsenal, we are going to have to want to funnel our money towards attack. And I think this Reece James niggle is an opportunity to go 4.5 or below. I wouldn't spend money in defense because I think that money is going to be much more useful game week 13 onwards in attack. Especially because I'm leaning towards maybe getting rid of James or open to it or open to selling him in 13 because 13 to 16 is fixtures read United, Brighton, Arsenal, and Newcastle. They don't scream clean sheets to me. Yes, he's a decent asset to have because Reece
Both
James
the hard games are at home, United and Arsenal.
Yeah, he can get a 15-pointer in any game. But I'd rather place my bets in attack. And I just think that if he's out for 2 game weeks, it's an opportunity for me to shift funds because which is what I want to do from a macro point of view.
Right. So what we've
That's
heard so
a very
far,
good point, Pranil. But the point that I'd like to raise here is that the problem with selling him this week is the fact that all the replacements or the alternatives you look at, they don't really have good fixtures this week. You look at Brighton, they're playing Brentford away. I expect Brentford to score. You look at Palace, who have good fixtures all the way till the World Cup. They're playing Leicester away. I'd expect Leicester to score. So, I mean, a lot of us are in this position where we sort of have Trippier who's playing away to United. Would you rather not play Trippier over these guys? I mean, there's not much to pick between. So, I mean, the other argument to what to do with James is to keep him and maybe give yourself one more week of information. I mean, I'm not necessarily opposed to that either because there is a chance that he could be back by midweek. I don't think that will be the case, but I mean, there is an outside chance. And when you don't really see an obvious replacement, who would you sell him for?
I think the replacements comes down to the type of team that you have. Now, if you're somebody like me who's sitting with Mitro, Marshall, Patterson, and Neco Williams, there's a lot of problems in the team. So I can't afford to be very risky with this position. I need somebody who's playing 90 minutes week on week. If you're somebody like Zoph, who doesn't have that many injury problems in your team, then I think you can afford to go upside chasing with somebody like a Doherty because you don't really mind that spot so much. So I think it depends on how many problems and how many yellow, orange, and red colored flags you have in your team in terms of how risk pro or averse you can be. I think that matters quite a bit.
yeah, let's just update everyone on the status of James' injury. So what we've heard from the Chelsea ITKs, including Matt Laws, the injury, quote unquote, isn't serious. Now the return time is still up, purely speculation. None of these guys know anything yet, and there's been no official statement from the club. But the general vibe is that he should be back for Manchester United and has an outside chance for the Brentford game midweek. So this is right now purely speculation. Now we don't know what Potter says tomorrow. So I'm on board with you guys, and what I think really is I'm looking now at setting up defensive rotations for that third defender slot probably. Now I already have somebody like Zuma. I could play Zuma this week. I'm looking at probably downloading James for like a Guehi. That way I can field Guehi in 12, and those two guys rotate quite well. So something like that is on my mind, but I might do that for Neco instead and give James one more week, because for me, it's very difficult personally to go to James and click transfer out. You know, the issues I had with him last season as well. He was in my team for about 30 game weeks. So I'm going to wait and see what Potter says on that. But I'm definitely open to selling him, because there's been a lot of talk about Potter and what he's doing now at Chelsea, and results have perked up. We were very good against Milan. We won comprehensively at the weekend. The bounce is happening now. So what Potter is doing behind the scenes is he's talking to players in one-on-one, and he's encouraging the entire squad to get involved. So rotation is going to be a thing leading up to the World Cup. That's almost set in stone. And James will be part of that rotation. They're not going to necessarily risk his minutes leading up to the World Cup and stuff. And though our Champions League group, we are on top now, it's far from certain it will probably go to the final match day.
I just want to take you guys through maybe 4.6 million replacements or under, because I just did an article on the Scout for them, and then maybe we can do a ranking so people can sort of pick. Now, like we already spoke about, the high upside option is Doherty. The low base, just save money, and because somebody like a Guehi has decent fixtures right until 16, that's saving you 0.1, 0.2 million. That might be useful in the future. There are two 4.5 million defenders that I really like. I feel like if you're somebody who has 3 defenders already playing in game week 12, then my number one option at the moment is Ben White. I think he's nailed on in that Arsenal defense. Arsenal are second only to Manchester City for expected goals conceded this season. I'm not too worried about his nailed onness, because I feel like if somebody needs to go out of the defense, it's probably going to be Gabriel, because Ben White has looked like one of Arsenal's best players. I'm not too worried about the Tomiyasu threat too much. I think he really, really fits in that system, and he's getting quite forward. He's already created about 6 or 7 chances this season as well. So he's a shout I like. And except for Chelsea away, they have got clean sheet fixtures until 16. And I'm not too worried about that. I also feel like United are in a decent position now that Varane's back, and I feel like Casemiro is going to settle into our defense. The problem is the next 3 fixtures read Newcastle, Tottenham, and Chelsea. That said, are United capable of getting 1 or 2 clean sheets in such a game? And with Dalot, you have somebody who's capable of getting points on both sides of the season, both sides of the pitch. So that's a shot, because the last 3, 14, 15, 16 are decent for Dalot. And outside of that, there are some outside shots. I quite like Brighton as an option also, especially if you need somebody playing for the next 2 games. They have Brentford away and Forest home in the next 2. Then 13 and 14 is tricky for them when they play the top 2 teams, and they end well. So somebody like a Webster, who's been pretty massive on set piece threat or dunk, is a decent option. And then the last outside shout is somebody like a Johnny Otto. Now, we don't know who the new manager at Wolves is also, but they've got a decent next 4 run of fixtures, if I remember correctly. And then I've seen some people on Twitter going for James Justin because the next 2 home fixtures are decent, but I mean, you're never getting clean sheet points there ever.
So the press conference, I found Rogers quite hilarious today. He said he expects the Palace game to be a tight game. And I was just wondering, dude, what are you doing? Are you watching Netflix on the bench? Are you not watching your own team play? How can you expect a tight game when Leicester are involved? That completely cracked me up.
I want some of what he was having before he got onto the press, so that's all I'll say.
But in terms of macro strategy, just want to, before we list our names, I want to have a discussion on whether you should go for the high upside X minutes risk player now, leading up to it with only 4 or 5 game weeks left, or should you go for like your nailed guys with your lower upside, such as your Guehi, Zuma, etc. Because there's a conversation to be had, because you don't want now to be spending transfers in defense. Injuries, etc. happen, and like you said, you want to take money out. Ben White is a different matter because it's only game week 12 to contend with. I understand that. But somebody like Doherty, it seems like another issue you're going to have later down the line, because most of us are Neco who you don't want to play. It's opening yourself up. Bakar, what do you think about it? Like, are you considering going for the X minutes guys, or are you going for the nailed guys?
I don't think this would have been a debate had Arsenal not been blanking in game week 12. I think it would have been fairly straightforward. But again, I mean, I have Perisic in my squad already, so I'm not really considering going with another high-risk player. So again, what Pranil said is very pertinent, that again, it depends on the kind of players you have. You already have a lot of fires, such as, there's Neco. A lot of people have Soufal. Others have Patterson, Emerson. I mean, these guys, they're all fires to to address, right? If you have these kind of players, then you would rather look at someone who's nailed and who's going to, play. And even if it comes at the cost of low upside, you'd probably have to prioritize the guy who is going to play. And Dunk and Gehi, possibly even a Wolves defender, those are the kind of guys who fit that category, that bill. So I don't mind going for a Doherty, but that again, I don't think a lot of people will have that luxury where they will sort of have, let's say, 11 playable players in Game Week 12. So I like that one, but I don't think too many people will be in the position where they can sort of afford to have that luxury.
I just think there's a lot of Game Week 8/9 wildcarders who have Cancelo, Trippier, Zuma, Guehi. I think if you own 3 out of these 4, I wouldn't mind going for Doherty.
Yep.
It's worth it. That's
fair.
just
But
where I am.
most people, what I have seen, the general setup is like Cancelo, Trippier, James, Neco, and then the fifth guy is usually your Guehi, Emerson, Zuma, etc. And speaking on West Ham, right at the top of my list is Craig Dawson. I love him as an FPL asset. That man's got a goal in him every game. Like, it's like Tony Pulis style, just lob the ball to Craig Dawson. And even at Anfield, he scored there for West Brom. He's the one guy I wouldn't even mind owning, because every single game he's just such a set piece monster. I love Dawson.
Yeah, he totally played Pereira that for that corner, though.
Yeah,
The way he earned that.
That's
penalty,
naive. That's a
that
veteran. I mean, that's
no.
total. It's a veteran. Pereira being a kid, being naive, and Dawson knew it. Dawson forearmed him for the penalty. So I think Dawson would be at the top of my list. Between Guehi and Anderson, I don't think there's much to pick. Both are very similar in terms of baseline bonus. Save the cash. And goal threat also, Anderson's had more shots, but it's all happenstance. It depends who's marking who from the opposition, etc., where the ball falls. So like Guehi second, Webster third. Go ahead, Bakar.
West Ham, I mean, the Europa congestion puts me off West Ham.
They qualify today.
Like
Let's say they win today, it's done.
But still, I mean, it is a factor that does play on my mind. I think I would probably back a Crystal Palace defender. If you're looking at the overall fixture schedule in Game Week 16, if you just want someone who's playable for 12, then I think Dunk is clearly the best one, considering his Game Week 12 fixture. Overall, I think Gehi is the one who I would go for if I was picking one till Game Week 16.
Fair enough. I guess it all depends on
who, is like obviously the
who you
pick
own.
You can have if you have the luxury.
I think it depends. I think it depends on the defense you have, and then you need to look at a little bit in terms of where you need who. But my number one pick by distance, if you can afford to play 3 in 12, is Ben White. I just think he's that good a pick. He would be number 1 for me. My number 2 would probably be one of the Brighton guys, because I think most of us need somebody to play in 11 and 12, and then it would be Guehi or Dalot.
I don't fancy Brighton for 11 at all, because again, Thomas Frank just had his press conference. He said we were distraught after the game. I'm expecting us to go on the front foot, etc. It's always dangerous against a team that just got thrashed 5, because they're going to show a reaction now in front of their fans. And again, De Zerbi ball, how much of that is going to be focusing on defense? Right?
Yeah, they're conceding a lot of chances. Cool. I'll throw that Brighton idea out of my head.
And again, West Ham plays Southampton this week. Ultimately, they are struggling. It's not, but they could score. It's not that great a fixture, but I think it's much better than what Palace or Brighton have this week.
I think I might just go Dalot. The good thing about United is the next 2 games are home games. So you think the chances of clocking 1 clean amongst the 2 is fairly decent. Then he's by far the most attacking defender, 4.5 million or below. Whether it looking at the stats, etc. as well. I can't think of somebody as attacking as Dalot in that price bracket.
Yep. I can't think of anybody either. Anybody else, Bakar, you think, who's attacking? I'm just scanning through all the teams.
I mean, it's Doherty. I don't mind the Doherty punt, because I think he could pay off.
No, I mean, these are the only ones. I personally don't like United's fixtures, which is why I didn't bring up Dalot. I mean, I know it's a home game against Newcastle, but Newcastle are a very good team. I'd be very surprised if they don't end up scoring. And same for Spurs next week as well. And then after that, they have Chelsea away. So I just don't like the fixtures enough for United.
I just think the fact that, because Ten Hag hasn't made decisions I haven't agreed with since a while. Like Malacia was a problem in a wing-back position. He's changed that. He's gotten Shaw. And like everybody who was a United fan that I speak to was like, yeah, we need that upgrade there. Varane's almost back. And he's done the right thing in terms of phasing Casemiro in. Casemiro struggled in the first 30 minutes against the press against Everton. But there is such a amount of quality that he uses, I think that's a little underrated in terms of how good Casemiro is probably going to be in our defense. So I just think in terms of defense and midfield, we're very close to finding our balance, which might just help the team transform. That's all.
Fair enough. Anything more to talk in terms of defender options? We can move on to strikers.
Gomez is somebody you were talking about, Zoph.
Yep. Gomez was quite attacking despite playing that right back role. I don't mind him because I think Trent probably misses the next 3 game weeks. The City game, you might have to bench him. So for example, in my case, I could play Zuma this week and play Gomez in, let's say, like 12, 13, 14 and all that stuff. So I don't mind
My
that.
only worry is Zoph flops into sports science, right? And 63-hour turnover, I can see Milner start one of those games.
Very possible, especially the Forest one.
That's my problem with Gomez as a pick.
Fair enough. Cool. Move on to the next one. Let's discuss the striker replacements. Let's just bring up the fixture.
Mitrovic.
Take it up here. Don't have it. Okay. Yes, Mitrovic. In general, Mitrovic, Isaac, etc. Now, the thing with Mitro, what we've not heard anything since the last update. Silva had told us that he should be okay for Bournemouth, but then he sort of backtracked after the last game. So we're waiting for an update tomorrow, and it is worth mentioning now, Fulham's Gameweek 12 fixture is one of the last games for Gameweek 12. It's on Thursday. So if he's thereabouts for this weekend, it's not like he's going to play on Tuesday right away. There's a chance he could be fit for Thursday. But that being said, I don't think we'll be getting a press conference for Fulham before the Gameweek 12 deadline. Their press conference is probably going to be on Wednesday. So it might be a bit of a shot in the dark with Mitrovic.
Yeah, we simply have to wait for news tomorrow, I think. And we'll have some rough idea as to whether Mitrovic has been training or not and whether he's close for game week 12. And even if he's out for this week, I think Andres is a decent replacement. Willian, I don't think will be fit. Andres again will be on all set pieces. So I don't mind playing Andres as the replacement if the news is that he's sort of close to returning by game week 12. If it looks as if he hasn't been training and he probably won't make game week 12, then I definitely look at selling him. And if you're talking replacements, then if you don't own him, Solanke's a decent one, but I think Tony is the obvious one now that you look at Brentford's fixtures till game week 15, they're decent. So I think Tony would be my number one replacement in case Mitrovic is injured.
Pranit?
I'm a scat man. I think my number one replacement, if you're looking at the same bracket, is Kamaka. I think he's a quality player. Like, I've been looking at the highlights, etc. as well. He's so involved, sort of like the mini Darwin effect that West Ham are having, where all of the big chances are falling to Skamaka. And what I've seen in the last 2 games is the finishes. They were quality, like such good finishes. And even in the game against Fulham, he had 3. He's 6'5". So his outlets to goal, he can link up play. I think he's got some assists in him as well, because they do have inside forwards. There's a very thriving relationship between Paqueta and him. Both, he had 2 or 3 really good chances. All those chances were balls through from Paqueta to Skamaka. So the only issue with Skamaka is I think he might play 70, 75 minutes when Antonio comes on towards the end. But I think it's worth it because the fixtures are really good for West Ham. And I think he's got the highest upside. And I'm fairly confident that I can say sitting here today that he's first choice. I wouldn't worry too much about rotation or anything like that. And he seems to have that quality, that spark. So if you're looking at the same price bracket, he's 6.7 million. I think he's going to pay you back and more at that price.
I do think he misses one of the next 3 though. Just because of this unique period there is now. He might now after this, because then they'll start benching him in the Conference League. But out of the next 3, I think he misses one.
Yeah. It's just the fixtures, right? 13 to 16, you've got Bournemouth at home, Crystal Palace at home, and Leicester at home.
Very good fixtures.
Very good fixtures. I do think there's a little bit of a conversation to be had in terms of where you're parking your spots. For example, if you're sitting on a Haaland, Mitrovic plus a striker, etc. as well, whether you want to go 5 in mid, whether you want to go 3 up front, if you're going 3 up front, it's not worth going for something like a Skamaka then, because you'd rather want a Gabriel Jesus by paying $1 million and a half more in 13. So just think about that. Think about what you're going to do in 13 and then track back a little. I think that's quite an important thing.
Yep. In terms of the other options, I think like Bakar said, Tony is the standout because ultimately he's a set and forget now. You get him in now and this up till 16, you don't need to worry about it. He is on 3 yellow cards, but I think his behavior should improve. He will keep that in mind. over the next.
I think
Zoph's fixtures are decent as well. When you look at Brentford's fixtures, Brighton at home this week, then Villa in 13, Wolves at home, Forest away.
Yep.
Those are good fixtures. Those are very good fixtures. He's
I-
going to play the 90 minutes as well. I don't think he's going to get rotated
He's
at all.
good for
He's not
this
at risk
period.
of-
For
yeah.
this sort of period, like players like him, 90 minutes guys are
Exactly.
good.
Exactly, and he's a very sort of like-for-like replacement from Mitrovic. You're getting essentially the same kind of thing.
I think Mitrovic is better as a pick.
Correct.
I
But
don't
one
think
thing
he's
I
that good.
wanted to say now, even if Mitrovic is out this week, I like the Pereira. Like we saw, Pereira is a bit more attacking when Mitrovic is out. There's more of an onus on him. Just the information you might gain when you might want to replace him with Darwin in midweek. So I would say if you have Mitrovic and like you have Pereira, if Pereira is not subbing in for somebody else, even if he's ruled out, let Pereira play this week. Get some information and get Nunes in for game week 12 if he looks very good against Man City, because then he becomes a captain option. In
Yeah, and
general,
I don't-
macro, I like having 2 free transfers open if you can for game week 12 as a general look.
I don't think it's wrong to plump on Liverpool attackers this game week. I still think Liverpool are capable of scoring 2, maybe 3 goals
100%.
against Manchester City. I'm not too worried because a lot of people have a perception that Manchester City isn't a good fixture. The game's at Anfield. I think Liverpool will be up for it. And this game generally, we've spoken about it many times, has goals. So even somebody like a Mo Salah, who are you planning to bring in, who you're sure about, let's say whether it's a punt on Jota or Darwin, City is a good fixture for your attackers. I am not against it. So if you want to make your bet, make it today. That's fine.
Correct. I was just saying in terms of keeping the options open for whom you go for.
Yeah.
If you want to go for Salah, if you want to go for Darwin, because you want to, more than game week 12, you want them in place for the 13 to 16 stretch. So getting the right one there is important. So just buy yourself that one game week of thinking time is what I would suggest.
One outside shot if your team's in very good place for 11 and 12 is Danny Webbs. I mean, I can't not shout him out because I think the next 2 fixtures are prime fixtures for attackers. And I think it was happenstance that all of those goals that Trossard scored in that hat-trick, Danny Webbs could have scored the same goals. He was in and around, he just missed the ball. So I think I can see him spiking 1 haul in the next 2 games. Yeah.
Cool. Anything else we need to talk about? Let's just touch upon game week 12 captains. Also, I know we already discussed it earlier in the conversation, but like I think we'll just recap it again in case you want to bring any of those guys in this week. Like we discussed Forest, against Forest, you have Trossard, you have Zaha against Wolves. Solanke, probably not Tony. The Liverpool guys. Callum Wilson against Everton, I don't mind.
Yeah, good shout.
What a shot. Probably need none of the Spurs guys. Maddison maybe, but with Maddison, I'm also not that confident because all his returns are from these low XG. I wouldn't feel as confident captaining Maddison.
I mean, it comes down to Danny's tweet, where he did this entire thing where number of FPL points since the last 27, 28 games, and Maddison has more points than Salah, Son, etc., as well. So he's just been in the returns and he's been on it, and Leeds is a Maddison game. So I wouldn't be too worried. It's very similar.
I don't think Kane is a bad shout either.
Nah.
Kane overrating United.
I don't like Kane at all.
I would rather trust him than someone flaky like Maddison or Zaha.
But someone like Maddison has been on it and has been a prime FPL asset, getting returns for the last 30 game weeks. It isn't a
big team
last 5
bias.
game week thing.
It's big team bias. Both Bakar and I have it, and I'm not ashamed to admit it. It's
Yeah,
just
exactly.
what it is.
It's big team bias.
Yeah,
It is.
that's it. I mean,
on the same point, I mean, for example, if Darwin looks good this week, I don't think he's a bad shout either. I mean,
100%.
you can go
That's
to
my
Darwin
point.
next week.
Just
if he
leave
looks
the
good this
Mitro thing
week.
open.
I think the genuine alternative to Salah is Darwin.
Completely agree.
Actually, looking at this table, Zoph, that you have in front of us, I mean, why have we just forgotten Wilson as a Mitro replacement option? It's a great option because then it gives you a genuine captaincy option on Gameweek 12 also. Wilson, no comms.
Correct. It's only because 2 of the next 3 fixtures are against United and Spurs. But then you also have Villa at home and Everton at home on either side of that. So kind of balances out.
And again, you're okay backing Newcastle for a goal or 2 any game, and he's going to hog the chances in that game. So I'm not too worried about that.
Wilson's also definitely worth a shout, but I think his fitness is up now that he can possibly start 3 games. Not entirely sure though.
Well, what's the schedule like? What's the thing?
Question.
Can you bring up that time?
Yeah. You want me to dial back to Newcastle? Right, let's have a look here. So Newcastle have not
75
great.
and
75 is short, but 91 is not bad.
Yeah.
It's not great, but
it
not the
depends
worst.
on-
They're about mid in
depends
terms of, I think, recovery.
And if they're winning, which is difficult, the next game is United, right? So then we don't know what's.
All right. Cool. So I think that's about it. Let's just jump to our teams.
Yep.
Right. This is my team up first. I've got Pope in goal, Cancelo, Trippier, James in defense, Zaha, Madison, Martinelli, De Bruyne, Mitrovic, Haaland, and Tony. And on the bench, I have Andreas and Zuma, who will most likely be subbing on. So I have 2 free transfers. If the James news is very, very promising, if Potter says that he's very likely to start against Brentford, I might still hold on to him and do something like Neco to Guehi and leave the option open to next week. If not, I will probably do James to Guehi, and West Ham and Palace have a very good rotation. I'm comfortable with that. That leaves me still money to do De Bruyne to Salah next week. I can go De Bruyne down to Trossard and upgrade Mitrovic to Darwin, etc. My options are open. That's where I am. This is, I think, LR, this is your team.
Yep. I've got
Yep.
Pope, Cancelo, James, Trippier, Salah, Madison, Zaha, Martinelli, Haaland, Martial, and Mitro. Now, I am quite happy if one of Martial or Mitro are fit for this week, so that because I want to play Andreas. I think Andreas has got a decent chance of getting points this week. The transfer I'm looking at, I was earlier looking at James to defender, but I have 0.4 million in the bank. So I was like, I have a chance to gain a player next game week if James is fit, and I can delay that decision. So what I'm looking to do is Patterson to a 4.5 million defender, because that's how far I can go. I can't go up to Doherty because I can go just up to 4.5. So out of the 4.5 million defenders, I thought I'll pick one up and then eventually go down from James to Ben White in game week 13 to fund Madison or Zaha to Foden. That's sort of the sequence of moves that I'm looking at. And I want to remove because then in case I need to upgrade Marshall to a Darwin or Jota, I know that the funds I will need will come from James, especially if I'm a Salah holder. So I am inclined to do the move James out anyway, irrespective of whether he's fit or not in the next 2 game weeks.
You have a lot of flags. Your team is fully in World Cup mode.
Yeah, but I don't mind it because Andreas is fit. So I need one attacker. And then I'm getting a defender in for Patterson, who's going to play 100% sure. So I will have 11.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Bakar?
I have Pope in goal, Cancelo, Trippier, Perisic, Zaha, Madison, Salah, Martinelli, Solanke, Mitrovic, and Haaland will be my captain. As of now, I will keep the same team. My plan is to roll the transfer. If we get news that Mitrovic is out for, let's say, a week, or James is out for a while, then in that scenario, I'll reconsider my options. But I really want to save a transfer this week because I want to give myself more flexibility heading into Game Week 12, because I do think that Perisic will be a problem in Game Week 12. I don't have Neco. I want to use 2 free transfers in Game Week 12 to address those problems at that point. As I said, I like the look of Dunk and Gehi. Neither have good fixtures this week, so I'm sort of reluctant to make any transfers this week. But again, my hand might be forced. I'm hoping it won't be, but let's see. Again,
I
a lot
don't
of
see your
this is
hand being
dependent
forced.
on the press conference.
You can save a transfer this week.
Yeah, if Mitrovic doesn't play, you got Andreas.
Andreas.
Done.
Yeah, you got Andreas.
Yeah. Again,
like I would
let's
save in your
hope for
position.
the best.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'd save for the information.
Yeah, that's what I'm really looking to do.
You can
Yeah,
even take a
exactly.
negative
That's what
4
I'm looking
in
to do as
12
well.
and like get some surgery done. But just quickly, guys, let's just dial back to captaincy. I know we haven't discussed it just because of the Haaland thing, but are either of you guys advocating going against Haaland? Do you think it's an option this week? Somebody like Kane or anybody else in your mind?
I mean, how much do you buy into what Pep said in terms of Haaland and Foden not feeling too well, being tired, etc. as well? Either way, I don't think he's going to rest them for a game against Liverpool. So I'm just going Haaland.
They don't even play the next midweek. They have the blank, right?
Yeah.
Because of that fixture. So
Yeah.
and there are pictures of Haaland training after the Copenhagen game. So he is in training as such. But I think if you are going against Haaland, I think the Spurs fixture is the one to target, right?
Yeah. And even that, I don't
Son and
love
Kane
too
are
much.
the ones.
Yeah, I don't like too much because Lamps is going to bust puck.
Exactly. So I'm not a big fan of that fixture. I'd be much more comfortable because of the penalty factor, Kane in that game. Because Lamps is going to puck.
Yeah, it's not a counter-attack game.
Yeah.
That being said, we haven't spoken about Spurs. Son looked good. I caught some of the highlights. In general, he was playing with central, good, confident finishes.
Yeah. He's in my thinking. If you want to go for him right now, if you can afford to go for him, I don't mind it.
Cool.
Like,
Let's just do
also worth mentioning one thing is that just dial back Neco Williams. There's a slight theory that, again, if you're somebody like us who has a lot of yellow/orange flags, if Aurier plays this game week, the turnaround for the next game is quite short, and Aurier isn't fit enough to play 3 games in a week. The chances of Neco Williams playing in Game Week 12 in a home game against Aston Villa, if I'm not mistaken, are quite high.
No. Game week 12 is away to Brighton.
Oh,
They
they
just
have a
played
tough-
home to. They just played home to Villa.
They just play home to Villa. Sorry. Yeah, away game to Brighton. You don't like the look of that.
Exactly.
no
It's
matter what.
0 to 2 pointers anyway. So ultimately, it's just. But the thing is, right? He's going to be your 5th defender for the rest of the season. So ultimately, just for 1 week, do you want to bother with that? Rather save the transfers for higher ceiling punts in attack. So just ride it out is what I would say with Neco.
Yeah, and I think it's worth mentioning that if you're struggling, playing 9 or 10 in Game Week 12 isn't a big deal because you're competing against the Neco Williams and the 4.4, 4.5 million defenders of the world. You're not really competing against the big players who have double-digit potential. So don't waste transfers on transferring out some really good players just because you're obsessed with getting 11 out in 12. I don't think it's a big deal.
Cool. We have done
Yeah.
about 50 minutes. Do you guys think we should do the Q&A in case we missed anything?
No, I
Skip it.
think we've addressed everything.
Yeah.
No.
Cool. So what about
Alright.
next week's plans, guys? I know the turnarounds are short. There's only Monday and Friday without actual Premier League football. So what we have planned is we are planning to do a pod on Monday evening, probably a 30-minute one. We hope to get it done, but things might get in the way. But we are very hopeful of doing it on Monday as well. And we'll probably do one on Thursday. Friday would be too short. Monday and Thursday, what's what we have tentatively planned for next week.
And what we're thinking is like we did the 50-minute pod today. We're looking to cap that at 45 on Monday and on Thursday, so that there's enough time for everybody.
Definitely. Yeah.
Cool. I think that's it. Let's not waste any more time. Thank you guys for being with us. Make sure you're hitting the like and subscribe button. We are at 22K subscribers now. There are 1,000 of you watching and we still just have 160 likes. Just click on that like button because it really helps the YouTube algorithm and it helps us.
Discord blog.
Thank you. Yes, and if you want to hang with us, Discord's been picking up a lot. You can become a member on YouTube or you can support us on Patreon and come interact with us. We are there, but there are just a few great guys on Discord who are lovely to hang with and talk to. So shout out to the likes of Understanding Football, Sankalp, Alex Rapala, etc. as well. Just join us. It's a good group and we'll see you Monday. Take care, guys. Any last words, boys?
Take care.